Tom Clark's Main Event is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show.
This is Daddy's show. Step off.
Hey, what is up? Welcome back to the program, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tom Clark, and this right here is Tom Clark's Main Event. Time it right. What's up, kids? Welcome back to the program. Happy Friday to you. How am I looking? Am I fuzzy? I ask you this every week. I feel like I'm fuzzy. Man, someone's got to work on their equipment on this end. I owe everyone here an apology. I buy you a beer, but I don't drink. I mean, I guess you could drink. Are any of you underage? I can't do it. I'm not going to jail for you or anybody. I just had a Cape Fear reference pop into my head. How you like that? Welcome to Tom Clark's Main Event, where all we do is talk about everything besides pro wrestling. That's what we're doing today. I'm kidding. We'll get to it eventually. We've got a special guest here today, kids. Before we get started, let's say hello. Sandy in Germany is here. What's up, Sandy? I'm keeping you on the screen for a minute because you're awesome. What do you think about that? Hold on. Let me get back. Get back where I once belonged. My guest is backstage going, what's this guy? Is he a rookie? He's an amateur? What's he doing over here? Carlos, what's going on? Guten Tag, Sandy, again, how are you? Sugar Shane in the house. Robbie, how you doing, my friend? Chad, too bad. I love you, brother. You call me Tommy again, I'm going to throw you out of a window. All right? Tom, that's it. T-O-M. 3 letters. Say it. I love you. Never call me Tommy again. Double V, Victor Vasquez. What's up, dude? Ray All Day is here. E being rude as always. Geez, God. The first thing out of his mouth is not hello. It's acknowledge me. My God in heaven. What are we doing? Why can't we all be to one another? That's what I'm asking. Freddie, have you ever watched the show? Well, good God, man. Welcome to the show. Thanks for tuning in, brother. Alma, how are you, my friend? Good to see you. I think I've got all the hellos out of the way. Victor Nash. What's up, dude? Vic Nash. What a great name. It's like the private detective. Alicia D. Byers-Brown, how are you? Happy Friday, Will. How's everybody doing? All right. I'm going to get the name of his show wrong. Why do I do this all the time? I'm going to let him tell it because I don't want to butcher it. It's the Wrestling Geeks Alliance Podcast. Nod your head if that's right. Oh, I nailed it. I was kidding. I knew it the whole time. I really didn't know it the whole time. Maybe I did. Ladies and gentlemen, you know him from the Wrestling Geeks Alliance Podcast. You know him from the audience participation here on the Main Event. Well, guess what? Sometimes the audience get to participate in real life. I tried to save it. It didn't work out. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. CRP to the house, Christopher Ray Patton. Chris, how are you, my friend? Thanks for coming on the show today.
Oh, I'm doing great, man. Man, we've been planning on doing this for like 6 months. We finally made it happen. So it's exciting to be here.
I know, right? I know. It's awesome. Welcome, dude. Welcome. Your beard game is on point. I've had some guys on the show with Jay from the Untitled Wrestling Podcast. Has got a pretty impressive beard game. So, that's cool. I actually got mine trimmed a few days ago because I can't, when it gets out to like that, oh, dude, I can't stand it. It's the feeling of it. Yeah. Plus my wife, she's not a fan of that. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I have that weird thing where when I cut my beard, I look like I'm 18, just complete baby face child. So without, my wife thinks it always looks weird when I shave my beard.
Well, I'll tell you what, the older you get, the more you want to look 18 again. I promise you that. I promise you. So
yeah, I've gotten all these grays. These just started like recently. So that's been fun.
I tell you that they won't multiply, but I'd be lying to you. He's see how he is, man. Already, look at that. CRP must acknowledge me. He's a good guy, even if he is a Green Bay Packers fan. He's a good guy. Kids, you know Chris. If you don't know Chris, kids, this is Chris. Chris is the kids. You're a kid also sometimes, but now you're one of the cool kids. See what I did there? It's Friday. It's been a long week, man. I'm trying to recover.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, by the way, we will say hello to a fellow podcaster, Marie from Peaches and Power Bombs. We'll get it. Great to see you, also known as Tina. Great to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Everybody go subscribe to Peaches and Power Bombs. Ray all day. See, I love how everybody's being polite. See that? Ray all day is a nice guy, man. Nice guy. Let's see. Let's get started. Last week, Chris, I know that you checked out the show, right? But last week was a bit of a downer. Last week, and still feeling the great loss of Jay Briscoe. I keep hearing him get subscribed as one of one half the best tag team of all time. Well deserved, honestly, well deserved. But at the same time, he was a lot more than that. Husband, father, just the best guy. And by all reports, from everything I've read over the years, that he was just the best guy to be around. Very easygoing, very humble. And Chris, you look at him and Mark, and you think, well, they should be humble. But dude, appearances don't mean anything. These guys worked and main evented all around the world, and like they could have had a chip on their shoulder. Both of them could have. Jay could have been like, well, this is my house, whatever. And from everything I've ever read and heard about him, he was never like that. He was always approachable, always great to fans. Dude, how long have you personally been following the Briscoes, them boys? I mean, has it always been a thing for you? I mean, always been aware of them, or how long are we talking?
It definitely started in high school for me. Let's say 2006, 2007, right around my senior year, because I started getting the Ring of Honor DVDs originally. So I've been watching day one, I guess, as the Briscoes would say. But yeah, I kind of, I watched going all the way back then when they were wrestling, Claudio and Chris Hero. Pretty much from the beginning, man, and stuck with it. The only time I've really fallen off Ring of Honor, and for those that listen to the Wrestling Geeks Alliance podcast, kind of know this already, is right around like 2016, after they had kind of lost Adam Cole and just a plethora of talent, let's say from 2012 to 2016. And then they brought in Marty Scurll, who was going to be the booker. And that went terribly, and then it just kind of fell off a cliff until Tony Khan bought it. That's the only time I really fell out of love with Ring of Honor, but I've always enjoyed it. And of course, the Briscoes have always been a huge part of that. That was like the hardest show I've ever done last week. So I know how you feel, because you guys did it live on camera. I would have been, I was suffering not to cry last week doing the podcast. So I can't imagine what was going on with you guys on cam.
It's emotional. I felt it last week. I feel some a little more than others, which sounds weird. But when Dusty passed, I really felt Dusty, because I grew up with Dusty, and it's like, oh man, that one still hurts a little. But yeah, it's funny, man. You connect with these guys, and doing what you and I do on the side as like a side hustle. Sometimes you luck out and you get to not only see them in person, but maybe shake a hand, maybe get an autograph, or maybe get a podcast interview. But still, larger than life isn't really applied to guys like us. Maybe to a certain degree it does, but it's a bond, right? That you feel like you're developing with these people, and you may not ever meet them, but you just feel like that. And I've told this story before through the years, like through the years, women have come and gone, jobs have come and gone. I've moved, that kind of thing. But pro wrestling has always been a constant. So when you remove one of those people from my life, it leaves a hole. Like, it hurts. I mean, it's weird, the connection we develop with these people, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very, very strange. I didn't know it was going to hit me that hard. We've went through years and years of losing wrestlers, but this one was just the blue, and someone who was still what I would consider in the prime of the career, about to have probably the biggest run of their from the mainstream stage. When you think about the fact that Ring of Honor is going to have some sort of TV at some point, whether it's on, a streaming platform like HBO or something of that nature. And it seemed like they were kind of the catalyst that they were building around. So it just sucks the way it happened. And it was so strange. Dusty was the same way to me as well, Tom. But the thing I think that really broke me down was that video package WWE showed with him being like, my hand is reaching out to touch your hand.
Oh, yeah.
Of it. They really dialed in that package.
Oof.
Good job, WWE, on that one. Because I was like, oh man, I can't
Yeah,
do this.
the
I
hard
still
comments.
can't watch that video. I'll get teary-eyed just thinking about it.
Yeah, I can't. I got chills right now thinking about it because that's, and maybe that's the answer. Like maybe for guys like Eddie, for Jay, for Dusty, and this is not to suggest that a guy like that people wouldn't feel, and I don't want to put out a name, that people wouldn't feel the death of someone else. But like there's something about an everyman gimmick, right? There's something about that guy looks like me. Like CM Punk looks like that looks like a guy I can hang out with. It's not, and I love John Cena. I do. I got no hate for John. And I think now he's more relatable than he ever has been now. But there was a point in time I'm like, you go look in your audience. No one looks like John Cena. No one has that body. No one dresses that way. No one has that haircut. No, how can I relate to John? And like, but for Dusty, yes. Jay Lethal, or excuse me, Jay Briscoe, yes. Bryan Danielson, yes. I can, because they look like guys I know or hang out with. They look like me. I mean, how much of that do you feel was part of the Briscoe boys' appeal? That had to have been a lot of it, right? If they were clean cut and well dressed, if they were, no disrespect to FTR, if they were put together like FTR, do you think personally they would have left such an indelible mark, or what is it just icing on the cake that they were just rough and rowdy and looked the way they did?
I think they were so good in the ring that they would still have left, a mark in tag team wrestling the way they did, but the characters, the everyman gimmick, like you're saying, very much like I know people like their characters growing up here in Gainesville, Georgia, but that's part of it. You feel like them, that they're like your distant cousins or something, and they really worked that gimmick very, very well and made one hell of a career out of it. It's crazy. Like trying to talk about Jay is extremely, or trying to talk about Mark is extremely hard without bringing up Jay, or vice versa. I can't think of many other tag teams that are really like that. Maybe Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express. So that puts them in a high echelon as far as like, if you talk about one, you kind of got to talk about the other, even though they both have had great singles runs in Ring of Honor over the years. I mean, Jay had one of my favorite runs, that kind of the chase with Kevin Steen up to him winning the title and the family coming in the ring is one of my favorite Ring of Honor matches, and a great send-off for Kevin Steen headed in. But yeah, it's weird because they're hard to talk about separate.
Yeah, and you would imagine Mark would be more than okay with that, and you make a great point. Like no one ever talks about Hawk. When you say Hawk, you want to say Hawk and Animal. When you say Ricky, you want to say Ricky and Robert. Yeah, to your point, that's if you can say Bubba, but you kind of automatically want to say and Devon. Like Bubba did stuff after, but to me that the prime was with Devon. That's what I think that has shaped his career. Honestly, I mean,
right.
Let's talk about this match from Dynamite, dude. We all knew this was going to be a tough watch. I wasn't broke down during the match, but it was tough. I mean, it's seeing Jay Lethal come out and look at, we've said here on the show before, Jay Lethal's had some stuff said about him that, did he do it? I don't know. I'm not a judge, whatever. And I'm not trying to dismiss anything that he may have done wrong or whatever, but I've always respected him in the ring. And the fact that he came out of that tunnel crying, you could tell. And then, when he got in the ring, it wasn't about let's be heel and face, let's just tear it up. And then Mark comes out with those two belts, which when I saw he had the two belts, I teared up even more. I'm like, oh my God, he's got his brother's belt. That's so awesome. How do you think, number one, it was handled? And number two, how do you think everything went overall for the end of that show?
How the tribute show itself was handled, or how the whole process from last week until now was handled?
Well, the main event of Dynamite specifically. Yeah.
Okay. I thought the main event of Dynamite was awesome. They had an incredible match. I wouldn't expect anything less from Mark and Jay. They've worked together a bazillion times in the past. It was really crazy seeing him come out with the two belts. The Jay Lethal almost had me, like you said, when Jay Lethal came out and just barely could hold it together. I was talking to Dane about this, and he said, like, I think it was Eddie Benoit and Brett had wrestled after Owen Hart had died. And like Benoit kind of had a similar moment where he was kind of almost crying going into the ring, and Brett had to no sell it, which is kind of what Mark did. It's crazy that Mark was able to just flip that switch and not get emotional. Like poor Jay's in there about to tear up, and Mark's doing Mark Briscoe 100%. I can't imagine going into a ring and trying to wrestle a match like 1 week later when such a tragedy happened. But props to them. They had one hell of a match. That froggy bow to the table was amazing. And they hit the perfect finisher, man. You had to finish it with the J Driller, right?
For sure. So. Yeah. Brandon, I know you're giving Kevin Kelly props, and I love Kevin Kelly, but that was actually Ian Riccaboni on the call for the Dynamite main event. Ian doesn't get enough love. I don't know. I don't think he does. But I love Ian's work. Shout out to Gary Benfield from High Velocity Wrestling. I think it's amazing what Tony is doing for the family. Agreed. And the main event, in all transparency, I have yet to watch the actual tribute show. It's on my plate. It's on my to-do list for this weekend. So I got to get to it. But I'm glad. I know it was released publicly, which is good. Dude, what's your take? And I hate to get all negative on you on this, but Phil and I talked about it a bit on last week. But what's your take on all this supposed issue that, was it Warner Discovery had with, we can't do it live and you can't put Mark on? Like at some point, I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it in depth on our show as well. I think my bigger problem is not the if you want to do that as a broadcasting network, if you want to have a high moral standard, the thing that made me the most mad is you have a slap fight with Dana White like directly after. That you can't do both. You can't pick and choose where you want to lay as far as round issues on your network. And that was the bigger problem. I think that the man tried to absolve himself, and I believe that people can make mistakes and change and get better. And I think that, Jay did that. And it sucks that we never got him in AEW, because I think if they would have brought him in when AEW first started, which they tried to do back then, actually right after Ring of Honor closed, it's not when AEW first started. Let me dial that back a little bit. But, the same thing happened with WWE. This wasn't just a, Warner Brothers Discovery thing. It kind of bled into wrestling in general. So it's a weird one. I just think if you're going to make that, if you're going to take high ground, you can't necessarily show a slap fight with Dana White talking about slapping people. It was just weird. And then I think the outrage on that towards the network is what actually got this done. I mean, I'm sure Tony continued to push it, but it seemed like after the backlash that happened on Twitter directly after this thing got done, because there was communications with other writers, right, whether it was PW Torch or, F4W, they were all saying Mark was still not going to be on the show. And then Tony came out with that tweet. So it's a weird one.
Yeah. I mean, and listen, let's be honest right now, because when it comes to, Tony Khan, and I got respect for Tony Khan, but sometimes on Twitter, it gets a little weird with him on Twitter. He's openly, and unprofessional is the wrong word, right? But he is openly at times like, why did he say that? Why would he feel the need to talk about this? It's just, I don't know. It's odd. There's moments that when he's on socials that I just can't figure out. It's like, why don't you just not comment? You don't have to comment on certain things. Just let it go. But like, he gets very defensive, and I have it from good sources that he has flat out direct messaged people after they tweeted about AEW, direct message them to kind of quiz them. And I'm like, dude, put the phone down. You know what I mean? Like, you wonder sometimes, and I'm not suggesting that he doesn't realize it, but Tony Khan has made an important mark in this business. Whether AEW lasts for 10 more years or 10 more months, he did something that no one else was capable of doing. WCW did it for short term, right? As a company, as a WCW did it for short term, but he's managed to become a viable number two who doesn't need to lean on anybody else, doesn't need to bank off anything. They're making it happen themselves. I mean, and for fans, not only for fans, but for everybody working for them, for all the talent in those buildings, for everybody behind the scenes and the production crew. I wonder sometimes if Tony realizes how important what he's doing really is for the business of professional wrestling.
Yeah, I think a lot of times he just comes off with his heart on his sleeve. He's a huge fan, and that maybe plays into not necessarily making the best decisions on Twitter. I'm sure that I would be the same way when it comes to certain things. But in this instance, this is one of those things you can say where I think Tony was in the right. Like, he's been talking about this when people would ask him about the Briscoes. He's like, look, don't get mad at me. Get mad at the network. Which I guess, in that sense, this is one of the Twitter moments that are okay with. There's a lot of other stuff. I'm kind of on the same page with you. Just maybe don't talk so much. But yeah, he's very open about his company and what he wants to do and his vision. But he's also just a huge fan of pretty much everyone that works on that roster. And I don't know if that sometimes jades the way he reacts to things on Twitter, especially if you're talking bad about his company. But I think that comes with you making every booking decision, right?
Very true. Very true. I mean, and I think where he has a leg up on other former bookers in the past, he's not a talent. He's not booking himself in the main event. So yes, he's got a lot of skin in the game. Honestly, he does. But, he can move, he can redirect, he can reposition. Whereas again, if he were a pro wrestler 30 years old and the star of the company, he's got to be the star of the company. So I think I don't want to call that a handicap, because we've seen pro wrestlers who were great wrestlers who were actually really, really good bookers in the past. But at some point that becomes an issue. I think his biggest issue would actually be, am I too friendly? Do guys step on me? Do they take advantage of me?
Right.
Do you how much it's a shame that them boys didn't get a proper run in AEW. Is that, in your opinion, does that kind of hang over this situation at all? Do you think it matters anymore? I mean, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, I kind of like the fact that the Briscoes didn't have this big TV run anywhere, because they're just special to me at this point and special to Ring of Honor fans. I kind of equated it to like Chipper Jones for the Atlanta Braves. Like, he only played for the Braves. He retired a Brave. That's like our guy. Or for my hockey team, the New Jersey Devils, like Scott Stevens or Ken Danko. There's something kind of cool about seeing, someone carry a company and be that company guy. And my worry with WWE and AEW is like, how wacky would that get? How off the rails would that get with the Briscoe characters? So to some extent, yeah, I don't think it shades their legacy at all. In fact, I think they had, 3 of the best tag team matches. If you want to throw like a top 50 list, all 3 of those matches would be up there, probably high on that list in one year. So if anything, the past year actually did more for them in a lot of ways than the other, and them not being allowed on AEW helps them book those pay-per-views. The back and forth between them and FTR, as weird as that sounds, they kind of built that entire feud through Twitter.
That's an excellent call. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, it does kind of hang. I don't know how negative it is. It's just a shame that we never really got to see it. Rewind a bit. We know that they had a tryout with NXT. I think the promo after the tryout was the most famous event of that time, and not the tryout. Was him talking about you're not cosmetically pleasing, right? He had that whole line, and I love that promo because he was blunt. The best thing about Jay and Mark, they're blunt. Like, if you don't want the truth, don't listen, because they're not working you. I mean, they might be hyping a match, but you're gonna get the truth before they hype the match. And he was flat out blunt about everything he said. Should they have had a WWE run?
I mean, I think, for their paychecks and for their wallets, that'd have been good for them. But, seeing what they did to the club and to FTR once they hit the main roster, that makes me want to put like a huge pause on seeing the Briscoes involved there. For all we know, they would have changed their names and their gimmicks completely, and then they would have just ruined the Briscoes, and that would have been a real sad thing.
I've said this before on the show, probably more than once, I'm sure. But at the time when all that was going on, I was reading comments and opinions, Chris, because we all have them, yes? from these really, and all these people were saying, well, it will never work. because they would make them shave. They couldn't curse. That would never work. And I'm like, you go tell Jay Briscoe to his face, you can't make it here because you can't shave, or we want you to shave and you can't curse. You give a professional wrestler a challenge and tell him you can't make it here, brother, in my opinion, no, it wouldn't have been the same Briscoes, right? But Jay would have said, I'll take that challenge. So, where's the pen? I'll get, and you know what? Me and my brother get over more than everybody here. I don't need to curse, and I don't need to do it with it. Give me a chance. We'll get over more than any tag team you got. So I never bought into the idea of, oh, they couldn't because of X, Y, and Z. And I've never met a pro wrestler who said, yeah, I can't do that. Nonsense. They all want a challenge, dude, whatever the challenge is. I mean, to me, you're right. It wouldn't have been the same. They would have been watered down tremendously. But like when FTR was the revival, no matter how many times they tried to keep them off TV or whatever they did, when they got on TV, everybody at home's like, oh my God, these guys are so good. Like it was so transparent. I mean, what is this utter fascination with that company about, well, you were Christopher Ray Patton, huh? Well, now you're just, oh, and we lost him. I think I jinxed him. I think I jinxed him. Well, kids, we've lost Chris. He said, I've had up here with this guy. I'm out of here. No, you don't have just, but Chris fell off the radar. We will try to get him back. There's no such thing as a mistake. It's all supposed to happen, right? We're glad y'all are still with us. By the way, kids, while you're here, if you haven't smashed the like button, please do that. Please share the feed wherever you can. We'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for that. That'd be awesome of you to share the show. Try to get as many folks as we can in here. You know, Friday evenings are always a challenge for us because Friday evenings, people are ready to start their weekend. All right, so let's all keep that in mind. You guys could be starting your weekend, but you're here with me, and I appreciate that. And now we're going to try Mr. Patton back again. I think I hate you with all the talk about WWE. That's what happened, wasn't it?
No, I actually just my computer blue screen, so it knocked me all the way off. My bad. That was a weird one. But I kind of got where you're going with that with the Briscoes. I think they could succeed given the right situation in WWE. The problem is how WWE is we're treating the tag division during that time period. That would have been, their tryout was what, 2012, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So that would have been just a tough one in general. Like I don't even know if I can name a top tag team from 2012 in WWE.
Well, Punk's pipe bomb was 2012.
Right.
Is that right? So Daniel Bryan was there, Punk was there, the Shield were there. They had were the Usos there in 2012? I guess they were. Yeah. New Day was starting.
The Usos would have been that the very, very clean cut, almost 80s gimmick baby faces then. But yeah, they would have been there, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, it's and kids, we've taken 30 minutes. We could take 3 hours talking about him and never get enough said for what he meant to the business, for what he means to the business. And of course, I don't have the latest on his family, Chris. I haven't Googled it. I haven't done any follow up. Do we know how his kids are? Have we got any recent reports that you know of?
Last I checked in on was on Monday, and they were both doing physical therapy and were able to get into their wheelchairs. Both have different injuries. One had back surgery. Sorry if I don't have the names and the information pulled up in front of me. It does seem like they're taking steps in the right direction. But yeah, it's I think I think the not the GoFundMe, but I can't remember what it was. There is a GoFundMe out there. If you search Briscoe's charity, it will pull up. Also, the T-shirt sales are going up to all the medical bills and stuff. So, if you have a little bit, definitely put that out there.
Yeah, they were up over $200,000 last time I checked, which is awesome.
Yeah,
Sugar Shane, dude, this is a really good comment. The Briscoes and WWE would be like the sheep herders turning into the bushwhackers. Is there some merit? Do you think they would have turned him into a joke act? Maybe.
Maybe. I don't know. What if they would have just put them with like, Bray Wyatt or something? Like, I don't know who all was there in 2012. You know what I mean? They could have been part of his little crew, or I'm trying to think of when their audition was and who was there at like in that tag division.
And honestly, let's be blunt. They would have kept him in NXT for a year, probably, if not longer.
That would have been right at the start of NXT too, because that would have been the change from FCW when they brought the Shield up.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
yeah, I mean, it's again, it's hard to play Monday morning quarterback and figure out what maybe could or couldn't have happened. Who knows? A few people tuning in a little bit late. Eric Jackson, what's up, my friend? David Down Under, how's Australia treating you, my friend? Good to see you as always. So yeah, it's again hard to say, hard to know what's going on. I wanted to segue a bit and talk a couple of minutes, if we could, about tag team wrestling in general. Are you a tag team wrestling guy? Are you a fan of that portion of the business? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I like growing up here in Georgia, watching WCW, big Steiners and Road Warriors fan. I always, obviously, Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express. I love tag team when it was really good. The problem is the only outlet I had, kind of growing up after WCW was done was WWF for tag team wrestling. And then that was bad for a while. And then we got like kind of the influx of the Hardys and 3D and Edge and Christian, but it was just kind of those same tag teams wrestling each other over and over again. So when I started branching out into like New Japan and Ring of Honor and seeing some of these great tag battles, that kind of brought me back into it. But recently there has been a huge resurgence, and I think a lot of that has to do with Ring of Honor, New Japan, and AEW, the Bucks and the Briscoes in general.
Yeah, and it's I think it's important. I mean, pro wrestling is a variety show. We say that all the time, right? I mean, it has to be a little something for everybody. You need singles matches, you need tag team, you need cruiserweight, you need super heavyweight, you need women, you need everything in between. I mean, if it's 5 singles matches, and they're all 10 minutes each, okay, but that's it. That's all you got. Like there needs to be something else, in my opinion. You need to something. And let's face it, man. Some of the best tag teams in the world have sold out arenas all over the world, and have been the reason people bought tickets to get in their car and drive from their home when they could have just sat on the couch and drive an hour and a half to get to another town, maybe another state, because it was Dim Boys or it was the Hardys or it was the Road Warriors or whatever. I mean, dude, that says a lot. I don't think it should ever be discounted. Why do you think the fascination, Chris, with other company, and this is what I was trying to get to earlier, in reference to name changes and whatnot. But what about this idea of, well, you know what, pal? He doesn't like tag team wrestling. Like, we've heard that about Vince for years. I mean, I'll never wrap my head around it. I don't know that you always hear, well, he doesn't like tag team wrestling. But then I don't know if I've ever heard the exact reason why. Do we even know why? Like, why would you not, as the promoter who's trying to make as much money as you can, why would you not feature as much as you can, including tag teams? It makes no sense to me.
Maybe he just doesn't like dealing with tag teams as an act, like the multiple personalities. I mean, this is the guy that dealt with, the Rock and Roll Express and the British Bulldog and Dynamite Kid. Maybe that has more to do with it. I don't know. There's not really an explanation for it, because he's had great tag teams throughout, WWF history. If you go back to WWF, I don't remember that they really ever did any tag team wrestling. So maybe it plays back into his dad's original, the way he liked to format shows, because I can't remember a ton of tag team wrestling in WWF, or at least famous tag teams from that company. I know there was people that came through during the territory days, but that definitely wasn't heavily highlighted on the show. It was more about Bruno. So that could just be like how he grew up and how he sees how wrestling should be booked, or his determination of how wrestling should be booked. But for a guy that's had so many memorable tag teams, you would think that he would like it a little bit more. I mean, a tag team right now is one of the biggest things on his entire show with the Usos and the Bloodline. That storyline right now is the kind of the carrying point of SmackDown.
100% agree. I don't understand either. But, to be fair, there was a point in time when, veterans of this business said the Irish whip was going to destroy the professional wrestling business. Like that was that was a thing. You know what I mean? Because it was like, well, it's not real. It's not. You're right. It's not real. But it's not real anyway. Like, but that became a thing. Like drop kicks became no drop what no, that'll kill the business. Coming off top rope, it'll kill the business. Like we've heard this for years. Like, Vince McMahon went on live TV and told everybody, all the stuff we do, none of it's real. None of it. It's all scripted, and you don't care, do you? And I'm at home going, oh my God, did he just tell the whole world it's not real? And what did everybody say? This is going to kill the business. Hasn't done it yet. It just morphed into something else. Now, you could argue, Chris, that what it morphed into is not great. I don't know. I mean, it's all subjective, right? But I'm with you. I don't understand when he's got some of the best tag teams in the history of the business on his roster. I don't understand that at all. I mean, it makes no sense. Ray Aldez says if Vince could create a tag team, it would be called the Payoffs. The Payoffs? I got that.
Hey, he made the Rock and Sock connection, so there's that.
Oh, yeah. You can read into that. Everybody, please welcome Bruno Royce to the show. Good to see you, Bruno. He said RIP American Alpha.
Yeah, he did kill American Alpha pretty hard. That was a even a worse follow-up with the Kurt Angle stuff after that. But
yeah, so bad, dude. So bad. Midnight Express, Ray says, with Stan Lane. That's another argument, Chris, is which version of the Midnight Express was the better version. I mean, Dennis Condrey is one of the unsung greatest workers of all time, in my opinion. Dennis would do stuff that you wouldn't notice, but he was so good at what he did. Stan was prettier. He was in great shape. He looked like a man's man, you know what I mean? Or a ladies' man, I should say. Two different Midnight Expresses, but they were more athletic with Stan for sure, I think. But no one should discount what Dennis Condrey brought to the game for sure.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I guess I would go with Stan Lane, but I would have to go back and watch like 5 matches from each and really make a determination.
That's fair. Yeah, because it was a different dynamic with all 4 of them, or with 2 different sets of tag teams. Yeah, for me growing up, it was the Midnights and the Rock and Rolls, man.
Yeah, I was going to say Jim Cornette with Stan Lane as a manager to me was funnier. Kind of their interactions.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
As a tag team in ring work, that would be a little tough. I'd have to go back and watch.
Yeah, and Dennis was not great on the mic. Stan could talk a little bit more, and plus Stan, the Midnight Express was originally Dennis Condrey and I won't remember his name. Paul. Oh, I can't remember his name. That's going to kill me so I think of it. But Stan Lane was part of the Fabulous Ones with Steve Keirn, so he already had a wealth of tag team knowledge coming into the Midnight Express. So, yeah. Day, man, don't get me started on old school NWA and stuff. I'll be here all day. Trust me. What do you think about the current state of tag team wrestling overall? Because I happen to think it's maybe the healthiest. I don't say the healthiest it's ever been, but I say it's pretty darn healthy when you look at all the companies combined. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I mean, Impact's got a pretty good tag division going right now, and AEW has a good tag division when they put it together. It's not as focused on as it was when the company first started. I guess that would be my one kind of problem with AEW. I liked the idea of the trios tag title originally, but it seems like it's kind of overshadowed a little bit of the tag division. I think the Acclaimed are having a great run right now. But it seemed like we used to get more tag team matches on AEW. I don't know if they're looking at quarter by quarter hours. I know Tony Khan's super into statistics, but I wish they would kind of bring back in a lot more of those tag teams and make it more relevant. But maybe they'll do another tag tournament over the summer or something. But yeah, as far as like quality tag teams and the number that are out there, I mean, it's definitely like a huge resurgence from what it was like, let's say 10 years ago.
For sure. Yeah, I'm with you, and that tends to be a criticism quite a bit of AEW, right? That they will be really high on something, and then within 6 months they kind of cooled off. and the fans are left going, "What happened? I thought this was the next big thing," and they kind of, and then it'll come back around, and they'll be all for it again. Women's wrestling in that company has been like that too, right? It's kind of been seesaw depending on what's going on. I mean, and as somebody who has been a part of booking pro wrestling shows, you got to get everybody on, and everybody wants to be in the show, and everybody wants to be on the card, and you got to find a spot for everybody. And there's sometimes where you're writing a card and you're like, I don't know if I can fit this guy in. I'll just make it a triple threat. So sometimes you just kind of squeeze people in. I would be shocked if that doesn't happen in the big leagues as well. I'm sure it does. I mean, the most well-laid plans are going to have to be adjusted due to injury, due to, suspension or sickness or whatever. I mean, and plus what the network wants. Do you have time? Did the promo run too long? I mean, it's got to be a nightmare on that level, just trying to time out a show, dude.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. There is sometimes where you just have to abandon an idea, though, like with the suspension of the Young Bucks and the Trios tag titles, for instance, or the Trios tag titles, for instance, and then leading up to now, where Kenny Omega is having visa issues, and those titles are just kind of sitting sidelined. At some point, like, strip the titles and move on and come back around, or do something different. But I feel like the Trios belts have been kind of doomed to begin with, just because they've had to push that storyline so far forward. I mean, we got that best of 7, but they didn't even think Kenny was going to make the best of 7 because he was having visa issues, which are still ongoing. He's not allowed to wrestle, which is why you have not seen him on the shows recently.
That's insane. Yeah, I mean, I would do everything in my power to keep those belts on those 3, because I don't want to go back to another tournament or let's have another best of 7. Not that I wasn't entertained by it, but honestly, Chris, from my seat, by the time we get to the last match, I've seen that match a lot. Like, I mean, yeah. And the problem is, like the problem is with the Daredevil stuff, and I'm not crapping on it. I love the Daredevil stuff, but like you keep having to up the ante, right? You keep having to, well, what else can we do? What can I throw you off of this week? Like, oh man, at some point it becomes white noise, doesn't it? It's like, this is getting a little too much here.
Yeah, and in the Bucks and Lucha Brothers in general, not even in a trios match, but just tag matches in general, how many of those have we seen in the past 3 years? Not even in AEW, but kind of everywhere, right? Because they were working in AAA as well. So I know I've had to see those guys have like 15 to 20 tag matches over the past 3 years.
Wow, it's a lot. Get down here, say hey. Kids, welcome the boy to the show. Everyone's going to start saying hello to you. Hang out, watch this. You wait. What? People started saying hello to you. This is Chris, by the way. My kid's real chill, everybody.
Ew.
You know what you got for that? You got to. That's what you got. So, yeah.
He's always got an awesome shirt on when I'm watching this.
Oh man, I'll hook him up. I'm gonna tell you right now. I put 23 on him, and Jordan. He wants Nike, or he wants a rapper, dude. I'll hook him up. Everything he wears is rapper t-shirts and Jordan stuff, and that's fine. I'm good with that. He leaves. As soon as he leaves, everyone in the chat saying hello to him. That's how that rolls. I wanted to close the show out with something a little bit different. And anybody knows me will tell you that we don't talk a whole lot about the current days here on the show. And again, kids, I have no hate toward that company. Let me say it publicly again in case no one's listening. I have no hate toward that company. I do not follow that company on a full-time basis and haven't in a few years. Okay. I gave it a lot of time, a lot of opportunities, and I kept getting tired of getting crapped on. So I'm like, you know what? I'm moving on. It did not coincide with the creation of AEW. I still gave WWE a chance going into AEW, but then I was like, nah, just can't do it. I wish them nothing but the best. And if this sale happens or whatever, I hope it works out great for the talent and the crew and everybody involved. I just don't follow the product, and that's me being fully transparent. But let's talk a little bit about the Rumble. And I'm going to start off with the thing that everybody seems to be talking about. Chris, are we getting the People's Champ or not? What do you think?
I think it would be very bad business to not announce The Rock before a pay-per-view, but that's just my hot take on that. I'm going to go on a limb and say
100%.
Rock's not going to be there, and you might get Austin in a run-in at the Rumble to set up whatever he's doing at Mania, because they have been openly talking to him about a match. But from every report I've seen, The Rock is out. Like, he's not going to be at Mania. It seems like something would have leaked at this point. We've been talking about The Rock Roman for 2 years now. At some point, I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. It's been a long time talking about this Rock versus Roman thing. And I've said forever, they don't need it. I don't understand what this fascination. Well, they're cousins, Tom. And I mean, I don't know why anyone believes that this would be better than Roman versus anybody else. And I know it's The Rock. I know they make a ton of money. But as we've alluded to many times over the past, make stars with the guys you have. And maybe somebody like LA Knight could have at this point, not on The Rock's level, but be heading in the right direction. Instead, LA Knight's a joke. Name changes, whatever. Cuts a great promo, solid in the ring, has been for years. But he's no closer to being a main event guy, in my opinion, than he ever was when he first got there. I mean, and still, he's a joke. He's a laughing stock. It's whatever. He's getting paid. Good for him. And I'm glad. I hope he's happy and healthy. But from a fan's seat, Chris, I'm thinking, how many guys do you have that you could have already gotten up to at least close to superstar status?
Yeah, I mean, from the fan standpoint, you look at it and there's two clear-cut people that you could roll with coming out of this Rumble, and that's Cody Rhodes or Sami Zayn. I think you have two choices, and both of those guys will give you a huge number for a Royal Rumble. Granted, it's not going to be Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. The reason they want him at Mania is if they're truly trying to sell the company, that's going to be one of the largest Mania numbers they've had in a very, very long time if they get The Rock versus Roman. Especially if they can also get Austin to do a match and Brock to do a match, which I think is the plan to me is that they were trying to build the biggest WrestleMania they could. So coming out of that, which is when they're saying they're going to sell the company past April, which would be after Mania. So that would be hopefully the height of the stock market if you had all of those people. But from building a future star like Sammy or Cody, they're going to be the guys. They're going to be they can be your top baby faces. Just pick one and, put the title on him at Mania. Roman's had it for 2 years. He doesn't need it anymore. They're just the only reason they kept it on him is to try to give prestige to a Rock match that's not going to happen.
And dude, I got a lot of love for Roman. I think Roman has come such a long way. I think this is the best gimmick he's ever had. I would never change his gimmick. I would morph it if it needs it. I would update it where it needs it. But like Undertaker, you can radically change the gimmick, but you got to stay true to who he is. And Roman's a great heel. I just don't have any problem with him being a heel at all. I don't think he should ever be babyface again, in my opinion. But the moment that they re-signed Cody, I said, Cody's winning the Rumble. Cody's going to win that title because he's the only one that makes sense to beat Roman. And dude, imagine Cody being the one to end all this bloodline stuff. And, you got bloodline with a guy from the NOI family versus the Rhodes, and Dusty never held that title. I mean, that storyline writes itself, man. And I love Rock. I do. But you don't need him, in my opinion. And dude, this, what you just pitched to me, and I've heard it, about Austin, Brock, and Rock being on WrestleMania in 2023. What year is it again, Chris? Because I don't know what year it is anymore in that company.
Yeah, there's still that subsection of fans that only tune in. And we just saw that on Monday when they had a huge pop in ratings, like a massive pop in ratings. There's a huge set of people that like the nostalgia. And if you're trying to sell a company, to some extent it makes sense. But, at this point, if Vince doesn't care, if he's trying to sell the company, it's not his problem after it's sold, right? So building a future superstar is way, way out of mind. But I agree with you on Roman, though. I'm not saying anything negative about Roman. It's just he's had the belt for 2 years. He's literally beat everybody. There is no other competition. So if they're not going to be able to bring The Rock in, the only person he hasn't beat is Cody. So, putting the belt on Cody is probably the right way to go, having Cody win the Rumble. Or if you just want to continue the feud, which everyone loves with him and Sammy, that's why I was saying the top two choices come out of the Rumble are the ones that make the most sense. If you book in any kind of logical way, would be either Cody or Sammy.
I agree. And I'll, as a caveat to that, I'll tell you this. from where I'm sitting, there is no good way to end this bloodline angle, because the most obvious end is they turn on Sammy. And I hate that end because it's so predictable. It is so unbelievably predictable. I want something different. And even if Sammy turns on them, you could also make the case for, well, we knew that was coming. Maybe he played him the whole time. I mean, maybe you can't make everybody happy, and maybe I'm one of them. But them turning on him, Chris, to me feels like low-hanging fruit, feels like the easy way out. I don't even want to see it happen. I want it to be something that I don't expect to see, something different. If you were booking this, how would you wrap up this storyline with Sammy and the Bloodline?
I'd have Sammy win the Rumble, win at Mania, and then I would have the Usos, who've already kind of feuded with Roman before, versus Roman and Solo Sikoa for the tag titles, and just move past that, and that be the actual breakup, not have it have anything to do with Sammy. They've already kind of showed the dissension where the Usos are kind of on Sammy's side a little bit, or teasing. But like you noted, it is really easy just to go with, well, we all turn on Sammy, right? But if you want to do it, just flip it the opposite way. Yeah. Like the Usos side with Sammy, and then the Usos feud with Roman and Solo Sikoa. Up until Solo gets mad and feuds with Roman. I mean, that's like 6 months worth of stuff you could do right there.
It's true. It's true. I mean, the only other move that would really turn it on its ear, in my opinion, is if Roman was planning on taking time off, have them all turn on Roman collectively, which Solo is suddenly standing beside Sammy. I don't know. It's just, who knows? But I just don't want to see the same thing every time.
Yeah, I like that idea too. I think the only problem with that is Sammy's super babyface over right now, which I don't think was the original intent.
Very true. Please welcome, kids, Michael Kane to the show, professional wrestling manager here in the Carolinas. One of the best, actually. Says Roman is doing his best work ever. Imagine how much crow WWE has to eat from misusing Cody so many years, then bring him back to beat Roman. That's actually that's really well said. Because, we all remember when he broke the throne, Chris, had the hammer, bam, broke the throne. And we're like, it's a new day. Yes, it is. Right? Cody's on his own, and this is awesome. It's a new company, and now look where he's back to.
Yeah. It's definitely crazy to think about, because when he signed, I was still baffled that he signed with WWE, but yeah, it's gonna be crazy. I mean, that's not gonna be far fetched. He'll have the title, if not at Mania, probably thereafter, very quickly.
Yeah, and I just it was shock and awe for me as well. Kids, we're at the top of the hour. We're going to open the floor for a few moments here before we get out of here and give you guys and gals a chance to say something if you'd like to. Chris, prepare yourself, my friend, for the first time ever live on camera. You get the question from Ray all day. I know you were looking forward to it. Let's see, Ray. Crisscross or Digital Underground? And part 2, ODB. Language, Ray. Or Redman. And if Adam Cole came to your house with tickets for you and your family to see the Hornets versus Lakers and had one extra ticket, could I have? And later wanted to get flavored coffee and a cookie, could I have as well? This is for both of you. Chris, let's let you go first, my friend.
Yeah, I'm going to go with ODB and Redman on that one. That's it. To me, that's not really that close. I know I should have more love for Crisscross, as they lived here for quite a while. I actually met a couple of them at Atlanta Institute of Music. One of the brothers. But OD. Man, you put a tough one out there. He's just trying to make me cuss on cam. That's what it is. ODB and Redman, I'd roll with that. And yes, you can has.
There you go. I will go Digital Underground, and I'll go. I can't pick against Wu-Tang Original. It's not happening. I love Redman, but I can't do it. So I got ODB. Yeah.
I thought this was like a tag team question. If I'm going to go with that, then
it's a two-parter. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then I would go ODB over all, as far as that goes.
That works too. Yeah. Never pick against Wu-Tang, kids. Trust me. It's a bad idea. Let's see. E says tomorrow's the return of James Ellsworth, and he wins the Rumble. I'll buy it. Let's do it. James Ellsworth, kids. There's a name we don't hear enough of. Tim says Tom Clark wins the Rumble and faces Roman Reigns in Hollywood. Hey, I'll bump. I'll bump and get paid. I have no problem with that. You know.
Yeah, that's a Mania paycheck.
It's hurtful. I know, right? Jeez. Yeah, I'll take that. Let's see. I'll let you take this, Chris. What do you think of the Karrion Kross versus Mysterio angle? I'm actually intrigued.
Well, being this the go-home show before Royal Rumble, I actually assume that you're going to get Dominic Mysterio interfering in this match and Karrion Kross hurting Ray so that he can't be at the Rumble, and they'll just continue down that path of son versus father. If I'm going with a bold prediction, either that or they just set up Karrion versus Mysterio seems like just a weird storyline they're putting there just to get back to Dominic versus Ray, which they will either set up tonight or they'll set up at the Mania, where they have like a segment where it's both of them in the ring. That would be my best guess of what they're going to do.
Man, I mean, Chris, what they threw at Rey Mysterio to keep him from signing with AEW. I mean, I would not be surprised. And I'm sure it was said, hey, listen, man, we'll make your kid a star. We'll do right by Dominic. And buddy, they have. Like, that kid's on TV every week. I mean, it's, I guess this, sign with us, Ray. We'll make it worth your while. I mean, this, as a dad, I can kind of understand.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it comes down to Rhea Ripley just having this amazing run, which has helped him more. They had tried to push him before, but he's felt like he fell kind of perfectly in with this group. So it's been great. It's one of the highlights of Raw and SmackDown as someone who does slog through a 3-hour Raw each week for the podcast, but they're definitely one of the highlights.
Chris has asked me about Kelly Klein for 2 years. Has Kelly retired? Because since the issues with ROH, I've not heard a thing about her. I mean, at all.
I haven't heard anything either. God, that was back in 2017 when they. How long ago was that? Yeah, I don't know. There was there's a lot of stuff that went up in the air there because they laid off a lot of the female talent during COVID. So did she leave even before then? I can't remember because it's been a while, but no, I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, they fired her and she came out with oh God, what was it? I don't want to say the word sexual harassment. I don't know if it was, I can't remember. I'm fuzzy on it, but I think Joey Mercury came out in full support of her and said that she was telling the truth about everything. It was one of the producers in Ring of Honor, if I'm not mistaken. And the guy was just, it didn't smell right. Something was wrong with the whole situation. Yeah, she was mistreated. I think they were forcing her to work hurt. And again, kids, don't take anything I'm saying. Take it with a grain of salt because I don't have it in front of me. But yeah, I would think by now she would work again. She would. I don't understand. Maybe she just wanted to move on with the rest of her life, man. I don't know. Yeah,
I don't. Was there any lawsuits or anything that came out of that? Because she could have just settled out of. If this was during the Sinclair era, she may have just settled out of court for a large sum of money. I don't know.
It's possible. It's possible. It's funny because we're friends on Twitter. We had went back and forth a few different times, not even about wrestling. She's a fan of jazz, and she'd made a comment on Coltrane, and we started talking back and forth about him and Miles Davis and other people. And here I am, a pro wrestling podcaster. Never tried to get her for an interview. Isn't that fun? Like, what am I thinking?
Hey, you should message her and be like, we need to, there's people out here, my fans out here want to know, are you coming back to the ring?
It's true. I get asked. Yeah, I get asked all the time. Kids, let's take 2 more and then we're going to take it home so we can let Chris get the rest of his day. And I'm going to do the same and let everybody begin their weekend. We have the lucky number 13 watching right now. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I very much appreciate it. Before we wrap it up, Robbie says, here's a far out way to wrap it up with Bloodline. Somewhere down the line, Kevin Owens wins the case at Money in the Bank, gives it to Sammy. Sammy wins the title. Then Kevin and Sammy tag in a match to beat the Usos for the belts to say, hey, friends are thicker than the Bloodline. I love it, but Kevin Owens' character would never allow that to happen because Kevin Owens is a heel at heart and a backstabbing, No good, rotten, dirty scoundrel.
Yeah, just the history of Sammy and Kevin Owens, just on, even if you don't go back to Ring of Honor, would not let Kevin would just not let that be. Sammy being the champion, that would last very shortly. But that leads to a good feud in itself.
Does. Oh. And any other time I would have told Vic he's crazy, but these days, who knows what's going to happen? Well, someone from NJPW. Vic, are you talking about an active, under contract wrestler with New Japan? I mean, what's the possibility? Chris, is there any chance of this happening maybe?
Oh, I don't know, man. They just had that banger of a match with Kenny Omega. I don't know how much they want to talent trade. They do have Carl Anderson, but he already had committed dates with New Japan and actually held their title. So it's kind of hard to say. I wouldn't be completely surprised. But yeah, who would you throw in there? Like Gorillas of Destiny?
Ooh. I mean, GOD have made it clear that they don't really care anything about WWE. They've made it clear over the years. And, you know, listen, for anybody, by the way, kids, for anybody that rants against a talent for going to a company to get paid, shame on you. You know, the clock is ticking on these guys' bodies. Let's be honest. Not every guy is going to wrestle in his 60s. It just isn't going to happen. At some point, you know, cooler heads have to prevail, and you have to be able to walk when you get out of bed in the mornings. So when it comes, Chris, to these guys taking a payday, I have no problem with it. We may not like it as fans because we didn't want to see somebody go back and work for Vince or whatever. But if he's getting a better payday than he would anywhere else, and it's good for his family, go. I have no problem with that at all, man. There's a tribalism that happens in pro wrestling. Is nuts.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I just think about if you get offered a similar job for more pay, and at some point you got to do what's good for you regardless, right? Now, if that job's going to make you miserable, that's where you kind of have to draw the line a little bit. Yeah, so I'm just trying to think of who they would even bring in New Japan. I guess, Muda could show up in the Rumble. He's doing a crazy kind of tour. He's got one farewell match left against Naito. You could do something like that as far as New Japan people go. But as far as people that are over with the WWE audience that are from New Japan or names that they would know, I mean, I don't know that they would send like a Will Ospreay or an Okada, which would be the two that you would want in a Rumble, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. By the way, seeing Okada, suddenly I just had a brief multiverse image of Okada being a WWE talent, how he's just not Okada anymore. And it made me very sad. So he was a good one. Geez, where do I live again? Magnus in the Rumble. We're talking about Nick Aldis, I assume, E. I mean, dude, Nick Aldis is not a 20-something-year-old guy anymore. But I don't understand how this guy isn't one of the hottest free agents out there. I mean, he's so good. I was almost to call him, he's Ric Flair, because he can work anybody and make them look good. He's well-spoken. He's well-dressed. He's excellent. He's sharp. He's smart. I mean, what's your take on Aldis at this point, at this age? What do you think could happen with him, honestly?
I mean, he would be a perfect fit with the WWE. I think there's a lot of stuff they could do there with him. And I mean, if he was to show up at the Rumble, you could have him screw over Cody and just go right back to that storyline and feud. I think there's a lot of legs to that.
Dude, if they're playing nice from the NWA, yeah.
Well, yeah, he quit. His contract's up with NWA, so technically he can go anywhere at this point.
True. And if they're playing nice with Billy Corgan, they could show footage of Cody and Nick from those matches that they had. I mean, that would be cool. So, yeah.
And he also makes kind of a perfect dirtbag heel for Cody.
He does. Because if and when Roman ever takes a break, Chris, that's a massive hole left in that locker room, or at least on TV. I mean, because, that company, as we know, everything is formulated around the top guy. And when the top guy's not there, what are you going to do now? Like I mean, we know how they roll over there. One more, E, I'm going to give it to you, even though you're always rude to me. What if Mark Briscoe is in the Rumble tomorrow? Dude, it's not going to happen probably, but I'd throw any amount of money I could. And I just tell Mark, look, just come in for a one-off, come in for the Rumble, make the fans happy. I mean, by the way, where is the Rumble? Is it in an area where it would make sense for a Mark Briscoe to be in there or no?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't look up the city on it. I know I thought it was Sunday and I found out today it's Saturday. So sounds like a perfect place for the rattlesnake to show up somewhere on this show. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. Oof. All right. Well, that's good to start a whole other conversation. I'm not going to do it. So I love Austin. Man. I don't know. It's 2023. I just don't understand why we can't just, I don't know. I don't know. You got another company. Go ahead.
I was going to say, just roll out Terry and Dory at this point is what you're saying.
Yeah. I got one thing to say to you, Chris. Terry Funk ain't wearing no mouthpiece. Okay. Let's don't forget that.
Man, I'm just over here eating Campbell's Chunky, man. Leave me alone.
We had to bring it full circle. We started with Jay. We're ending with Jay. So there you go. All right, kids. Well, that's all we got for you. Everybody, let's thank our very special guest, Mr. Christopher Ray Patton. Chris, I'm going to take you off camera, but don't go anywhere. And before we go, Chris, take a moment to tell the kids where they can find you on the social media.
Yeah, you can hit me at Chris R. Patton on Twitter and Facebook, Instagram, Christopher.R.Patton. And as far as the podcast goes, it's Wrestling Geeks Alliance. Searching on Google, it'll pop up everywhere. It's Redbubble, Stitcher, pretty much everywhere you could find it. Amazon, Audible, iTunes, whatever, Spotify, it's everywhere.
Nice. Chris, thanks again for joining me, man. It's been a pleasure, and we'll have you on again real soon, dude.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for having me. And it was good talking to all you guys in the comments as well.
Yeah, man. Thank you much. All right, kids, that's CRP, as we call him here, Christopher Ray Patton. Please go do as the man says. Be nice. Subscribe to the show, if you will. While you're at it, subscribe to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. That's movies, music, Marvel, magazines, miniseries, and more, just so you know. It's a fun podcast. This past week, we put out our episode on True Lies. The past 2 weeks before that, we put out Captain America, the Winter or Civil War. So we do a little bit of everything on the show, folks. Just to let you know how diverse we are, the next show Phil and I will be recording is New Jack City. So there you go. We're very diverse here on the 6M podcast. We loves what we loves, and we're a fan of anything. We geek out over a lot of stuff. So there you go. Please go subscribe, and hopefully you won't regret it. It's a fun show. And we hope you've had fun here today on Tom Clark's Main Event. As you can see the number at the bottom of your screen, this is episode number 297. We have 3 to go to the big 300, and I'm going to have a bunch of faces on the screen, not just this ugly mug. We're going to be talking all things pro wrestling as we always do and celebrating the main event. I'm not going to rant. I started the show in 2014. So I count 2014 as the year that I started. So technically this is 10 seasons of the show. Nuts. I have nothing to say but nuts. It's been a blast. I have no intention of wrapping up. I love doing this. I love doing it with all you guys. You guys are awesome, and I appreciate all of you. We're going to get out of here. Please stay tuned. We will be back, barring any unforeseen circumstance. We'll be back next week, so everybody please pay attention to that and stay tuned for more. And again, kids, as always, we thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. Thanks for hanging out. Please help us promote the show wherever you can. Let people know about the main event and the 6M podcast. It means loads to me. We're getting out of here, folks. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Thanks again, kids. Have a great one. Tom Clark's Main Event.